Okay, so we're about to dive into a story so dark, so completely unsettling, that the man who told it was dismissed as insane. This is the account of Edward Prendick, a tale of survival, of science twisted into something monstrous, and of a forgotten island that held a terrible secret, a place they called the House of Pain. Right from the start, this is how his own nephew introduces the story. It's basically a disclaimer, framing everything we're about to hear as the possible ramblings of an unhinged mind. And that's a crucial thing to remember. What you're about to hear is so bizarre, so profoundly unbelievable, that society's easiest answer was just to label him as mad. So the question hangs over everything. Are we listening to a lunatic, or to someone who witnessed horrors that defy all explanation? So our story kicks off at what should be the end of an ordeal. Prendick is floating, alone, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He's the only survivor of a shipwreck. But this isn't the end of his suffering. Oh no, this is just the beginning. I mean, just imagine it. 8 days adrift. Civilization just gets stripped away, layer by layer. By day 4, the water's gone. By day 6, someone makes a grim proposal. Cannibalism? Prendick refuses, but that suggestion alone is enough to light a fuse. The other 2 men fight, a desperate final struggle that ends with both of them going overboard, leaving Prendick utterly alone, haunted by what they'd almost become. Just when he's given up all hope, a ship appears, the Ipecacuanha, which is, a pretty ironic name since he's basically pulled from one floating hell only to find himself in another. This little trading vessel is just filthy. It's run by a drunken captain, and it's carrying some very, very strange cargo. Yet this rescue is no salvation. It's like he's descended into another level of nightmare. The whole deck is a floating menagerie of misery. There's a puma in a cage just burning with fury. There are these snarling, muzzled dogs. And he's being cared for by this guy Montgomery, a disgraced medical student with a dark past, and served by this bizarre, black-faced attendant who seems more animal than human. And there's this one moment, just a fleeting glimpse of this strange attendant in the dark, and what he sees just hits him as completely inhuman. It's a small detail, but it's the first real sign that something is profoundly, deeply wrong here. Those aren't the eyes of any man he's ever seen. So the ship finally gets where it's going, some unnamed island, just a little speck of volcanic blue on the horizon. This is where Montgomery and his grim cargo are headed. For Prendick, it feels like, okay, this bizarre chapter is over. He could not be more wrong. The captain, in a drunken rage, just decides he's had enough. Enough of Montgomery, enough of his beasts, enough of this stowaway he rescued. He refuses to let Prendick land, shoves him back into the same little boat he was saved from, and just cuts him loose. Again. He's abandoned, again, stuck between a hellish ship and this deeply mysterious island. Seeing what's happened, a boat from the island, grudgingly it seems, comes back for him. It's led by this powerful white-haired man, but it's the boatmen who really grab Prendick's attention. They're wrapped up in these dirty white cloths with brutish faces. Their bodies are just wrong. Abnormally long arms, short, twisted legs, and they move with this unnatural clumsiness that gives Prendick what he calls a queer spasm of disgust. The white-haired man says he's a biologist, but the secrecy is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Prendick gets taken to the stone enclosure, given a room, and immediately locked in. And he's given one rule. There's an inner door he must not, under any circumstances, pass through. A forbidden chamber right at the heart of this strange new world. So as Prendick is sitting there, locked in his room, a name he overheard starts to rattle around in his head. Moreau. And then it clicks. He remembers the ghost of a decade-old scandal, the Moreau horrors. He remembers reading a pamphlet about this brilliant physiologist who was run out of London for doing the most gruesome, cruel experiments on live animals. And he realizes, with this sickening certainty, his host is that very same man. Locked in his room, smelling the sharp antiseptic air of a lab, Prendick's attention gets drawn to the other side of that locked door, because sounds are starting to come from Moreau's inner sanctum, sounds that are going to be etched into his soul forever. It starts with the puma, the same one from the ship. Now it's on Moreau's operating table, and it cries out in these sharp, agonizing bursts. This is the raw, unfiltered sound of vivisection. And it doesn't stop. The cries just go on, escalating until they become this exquisite expression of pure suffering. It's a sound that completely shatters the peace of the island, a relentless broadcast of torment that is physically and emotionally unbearable. This is the sound of a living creature being systematically taken apart. But then the sound shifts, and the horror deepens. What he's hearing is no longer just the sharp cry of a puma. The agony finds a new pitch, a new, terrifying rhythm. It becomes a groan, broken by sobs and gasps that sound unmistakably, chillingly human. And in that one moment, the sickening realization just crashes down on him. The memory of the Moreau horrors, the human-like sobs coming from the next room, the only possible conclusion is the most monstrous one he can imagine. Moreau isn't just vivisecting animals, he's vivisecting people. He can't take it anymore. Driven from his room by those unbearable sounds, Prendick flees into the jungle, desperate to get away from the noise. But he finds out very quickly that the horror is not just confined to that one room. The entire island is Moreau's laboratory. He plunges into a world filled with creatures that just defy classification. He sees a figure that looks like a man lapping water from a stream like an animal. He stumbles on 3 figures, human in shape, but with the undeniable faces of swine, chanting around a fire. The terrible truth starts to dawn. These are Moreau's experiments, his failures, roaming the island like lost souls. And now they've seen him. He is being hunted. He's pursued along the beach by this relentless, half-seen creature, and his flight just becomes a desperate, panicked scramble under the stars. He's exhausted, sobbing for breath, and he knows he's about to be caught. In one final, desperate act, he turns and smashes his pursuer with a rock, felling the animal man in a single, brutal blow. He staggers back towards the enclosure, the only place that offers any kind of safety, and he's found by Montgomery. He just collapses, his mind and body completely broken by what he's seen and what he's done. The terror, though, is far from over. The next morning, as he's recovering, Prendick notices something, a mistake. In a moment of distraction, Montgomery forgot to relock the door to the inner courtyard. The door to the House of Pain is, for the very first time, open to him. And as he stands there, the groaning from inside starts up again. It is undeniably the sound of a man in torment. His absolute worst fear, the most hideous explanation he can think of, forms in his mind. And the question becomes an accusation. He just can't bear not knowing anymore. He grabs the handle and bursts in. And there, in the dim light of the lab, he sees it. Something scarred, red, covered in bloody bandages, bound painfully to a framework. His worst fears aren't just confirmed, they are grotesquely exceeded. Before he can even process the sight, Moreau himself is there, his face white and terrible. He throws Prendick from the room with incredible strength, and as he does it, his furious words reveal not remorse, not guilt, but the cold, possessive fury of a creator whose monstrous masterpiece has been disturbed. So what does it say about a man when his greatest fear isn't that he'll be exposed as a monster, but that someone might interrupt his work?